Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ingram, the Delaware State Education Association President and Community Engagement Subcommittee Co-Chair for the Reading Consortium. I'm joined by Taylor Hawk, the Director of Legislative and Political Strategy for DSCA. Together, we want to welcome you to the Reading Consortium's Educator Advisory Panel Town Hall. We are so glad to have you join us this evening. Just a few reminders. This is a hybrid meeting, so we ask that you please announce yourself by name before you're speaking. Please be sure to mute yourself when you are not speaking. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted for the public. Educator advisory panels, we ask that you please type your name in chat for the roll call. And after all of our members have typed their name in the chat, we're going to ask you to introduce yourself. As a reminder, educational leaders and students from the University of Delaware's Institute for Public Administration and Delaware State University are here as staff members to provide support for the Reading Consortium. All right, so I am going to use our contact list and just scroll right down. I'm not sure, you said Ronika might not be here. Yeah. Okay, so we move on to Valerie. Valerie, if you could just unmute yourself, tell us who you are, where you work.
Valerie Jermusik. I'm an 8th grade ELA teacher at Maurice Pritchett Academy.
Thank you for being here tonight. Dr. Scott?
I think you're talking about me. I wish I was a doctor. This is Mackenzie Mackenzie Scott. I'm a elementary school counselor at Pritchett Academy.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dickerson?
I do not see that she's
fine. Benjamin Hoseblatt?
Hello, my name is Benjamin Hodesblatt, and I'm a 7th grade science teacher at the Bayard School.
Thank you for being here tonight. Casey Montagne?
Casey Montagne, I'm an instructional coach at Kirk Middle School in Christian School District.
Thank you for being here tonight. Lynn Holly Oates?
Hi, my name is Lynn Holly Oates. I am a school secretary at Warner Elementary.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. Janine Clark?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Janine Clark. I am a 3rd grade teacher at Warner Elementary.
Thank you for being here tonight. Christo Nelson?
I do not see if she's online.
Okay. Jeanette Wilt?
Hi, I'm Jeanette Wilt, and I teach computer science and math at Brandywine High School.
Thank you. We'll move to just introducing some of our local leaders. Is Steve Rulon here tonight? Okay. Dave Davis? I do believe I saw Kim Barbado.
This is David Davis. Good evening, everyone.
Oh, thank you, David.
Hi, I'm Kim Barbado. I'm an 4-5 intensive teacher at Castle Hills in Colonial School District.
Thank you. Jen Smith?
Hi, everyone. Jen Smith. I'm a UniServe director, and I oversee Colonial and Red Clay secretaries, Colonial EA, Red Clay secretaries in Newcastle County VOTEC EA in Newcastle.
Thank you for being here tonight. Is Dave Cohan here? Julie DeHaas?
Julie DeHaas from DSEA.
Thank you, Julie, for being here tonight. Is Steve Beckenfeld here tonight?
I believe he wasn't able to make it.
Okay. And Vicki Capanello?
There's still an RCEA exec board meeting that's finishing up, so I think some more RCEA folks will be here when that meeting is over.
Thanks, Patty. When they join, we'll have them introduce themselves. I appreciate it. I knew that they were in a meeting. I didn't know if they had finished. I appreciate you for letting us know. I did see, I believe, Congresswoman Cabrera is on.
I love the title of Congresswoman, maybe in the future, but Councilwoman Cabrera is here.
Oh, I'm
present.
sorry.
No, girl, you just speak it into existence.
Well, there we go. You know, I've spoken your future. Thank you. Thank you. And I believe I saw Matt Den was here as well.
Hi, good evening, and thank you to everyone for participating in this on a school night. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. I believe I hit all the official contacts that we had on our list. I know there are other people who are here who might want to have a chance to speak during later in the meeting during maybe public comment or something. So here's an overview of tonight's agenda. Did you want to introduce yourself first? before we
Sure.
start? Okay.
Hi, I'm Taylor Hawk, Legislative and Political Strategy at DSEA.
Thanks, Taylor.
Stephanie and then
Yes.
Karen Eller.
I'm sorry, Karen Eller.
Oh, hi guys.
Yes.
Hi everyone, Karen Eller. I teach sixth grade science at Pritchett Academy.
I'm sorry, Karen. She told me that before we started and
No.
completely. Yes, I apologize. Thank you very much. All right, so during this town hall, we are going to share the Reading Consortium's vision for strong public schools, a brief history of redistricting in Wilmington, and go over the consortium's redistricting, I hate that word, planning process. The main focus of our time tonight is engaging educators in a conversation and hearing from you about your input and ideas, how to best support educators and elevate their voices during the redistricting planning process. Afterwards, we will share a recap and next steps, and then we'll open the floor for public comment.
So as Stephanie mentioned, we want to first start with sharing Reading Consortium's vision for strong public schools in the city. We want all students to excel in school by expanding access to the academic supports that can better meet their needs. The focus of the efforts is not about dividing the pie, but growing the pie to expand access to resources for all students. Because every child deserves access to a great school and high quality education, no matter where they live or their background. Changing school district boundaries won't solve anything, but Reading believes it's an important first step to bring school communities together. And this is part of a bigger plan to improve schools and support stronger, more connected communities. Their vision for great schools in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County that meet the Reading Consortium definition of educational equity. And the definition for educational equity states, educational equity requires safe and secure and student-focused learning environments where every student is intentionally provided access to the support, resources, and opportunities they need to reach their full academic and social potential in and out of the classroom. Established in 2019, the Reading Consortium recommends policies and practices to the Governor and General Assembly that will improve educational equity for all students. The goal is to improve academic and learning outcomes for all students in pre-K through 12th grade in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. They have worked to achieve these goals by submitting policy recommendations to the General Assembly and Governor in 2020, which were funded and implemented by the state. Since then, the consortium has worked with state agencies and community partners to improve educational equity. Some examples of that work include full-day pre-K for our youngest learners, in-school health centers and out-of-school time services for students, and a scholarship program for eligible City of Wilmington educators and staff in high-need schools to meaningfully address teacher recruitment and retention. Another core part of the charge is working on redistricting in the City of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The consortium is mandated by the state to develop a redistricting plan, which is outlined in Senate Bill 148 and House Bills 222 and 229. They will continue the work to expand opportunities so that every student has access to a world-class education and great schools. There are 18 public schools located in the city of Wilmington, serving 11,000 students. Over the years, school leaders and community members have worked together to improve education for Wilmington students, but Reading believes the system is still too complex and there needs to be a more unified way to support all students and schools. The Reading Consortium is using over 20 years of reports and community input to guide their work. Decades of past redistricting efforts include the Wilmington Neighborhood Schools Committee, the Wilmington Education Task Force, the Wilmington Education Advisory Committee, and the Wilmington Education Improvement Commission. This map shows the current 4 traditional public school boundaries for City of Wilmington students attend schools in Brandywine, Christina, Colonial, and Red Clay, visually depicting the fragmented governance structure.
We'll now share an overview of the consortium's redistricting planning process. The interim plan was approved by the consortium on May 9th, 2024. The plan was also affirmed by the General Assembly with a resolution in June of 2024. The interim plan framework outlines that no more than 2 school districts should serve the city of Wilmington students, focusing on removing the Christina School District from serving the city. Key areas of the plan include an 18-month planning timeline. The Reading Consortium has 18 months to develop a final redistricting plan. This 18-month timeline began when the interim plan was approved by the consortium in May of 2024. A subcommittee structure. We have 3 groups working to address the 13 stipulations for the final Reading plan. The 3 subcommittees are operational impacts, fiscal impacts, and community engagement. A social drivers of health and education landscape analysis for the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The American Institute for Research, AIR, is conducting a study about the factors outside of school, like healthcare access, housing stability, and access to after-school programming that impact students' educational outcomes. Proposed big ideas for policy reform. The final plan will also explore big picture policy reform ideas related to school funding, state investment, charter schools, and school choice reform. The following policy reforms are proposed ideas outlined in the interim plan that may or may not be included in a final redistricting plan. The work on these broader policy reforms will take place alongside the subcommittee's redistricting planning work. The big ideas include revenue policy, including revenue reform, Newcastle County tax district pool reform, state investments in education. In addition to the current levels of opportunity funding, some potential examples include expanding access to high-quality early learning programs, supplementing premium pay to teachers who work in high-need schools, adding specialized magnet programs to elementary schools in the new districts, improving access to before school, after school, and summer programs for students, school choice, charter school, and district coordination. The Reading Consortium must address 13 stipulations as outlined in the Delaware Code that must be addressed in the final redistricting plan. In the approved interim plan, the consortium assigned stipulations to the 3 redistricting subcommittees to work on addressing in the development of the final plan. The Community Engagement Subcommittee has been tasked by the consortium with addressing these 5 stipulations listed below. Implications for educators, administrators, and other personnel that may lead to equitable adjustments to local collective bargaining agreements, engagement of educators, staff, parents, district personnel, and community members throughout the transition, an assessment of the educational needs of the city of Wilmington students and the resources required to meet those needs, directives for improving secondary education options for city of Wilmington students, such as the provision of additional secondary schools, and lastly, a process for the ongoing mentoring and evaluation of the educational impacts and outcomes of implementation, which will include an annual report by the consortium to the governor, the General Assembly, the Secretary of Education, and the State Board of Education. The interim plan also details the official charge and overview of the Community Engagement Subcommittee to engage with the following organizations and groups. The Community Engagement Subcommittee has worked on the creation of an educator advisory panel to ensure educator needs and voices are involved and reflected in the final plan. This panel is part of the Community Engagement Subcommittee's collaborative work to ensure educator needs and voices are involved and reflected in the final plan. Advisory panel members were recommended by their local presidents or by their DSCA UNISERV directors. We will work with other educator groups to appoint additional members to the educator advisory panel to ensure a diverse set of educator voices and perspectives are included as part of this essential work. The subcommittee will also work to conduct focus groups to hear directly from impacted communities, educators working in high-need schools, and parents, family, and community members asking about their ideas and their preferences. Additionally, the subcommittee will conduct regularly scheduled check-ins with the Wilmington Learning Collaborative to support immediate help and assistance to the Christina School District related to educator shortages and support, shared decision-making, reducing class sizes, providing mental health and behavioral health intervention supports, access to math and reading specialists, access to enrichment activities related to arts, athletics, and more. Throughout this process, the goal is for the Reading Consortium to collect feedback, ensure open dialogue, and work to build a final plan that is best for students and families in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. Where are we now? The consortium has hosted 3 strong school town halls in May to hear from the community about their values and key priorities for improving public education in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. Some of the key takeaways from the strong school town halls include feedback about some of the things listed below. Schools as hubs. So our schools can be pillars of the community with strong partnerships to address inequality, family engagement that removes barriers and amplifies family voice, especially in high poverty and trauma impacted areas, supporting policies that promote racial, social, and socioeconomic integration and implementing fair choice systems and weighted funding, supports for vulnerable students that address basic needs, housing, food, and mental health among them to enable learning, high quality schools, smaller classes, personalized support, and strong relationships, facility equity, addressing infrastructure gaps and fair redistricting, universal pre-K and extended learning to expand early learning and before and after school programs, early intervention, identifying learning challenges early, fostering engagement via project-based learning. Culturally responsive practices, which reflect diverse experiences, expanding arts and communication programs, instructional quality, pairing high expectations with MTSS, inclusive enrichment and trauma-informed supports, educator retention and recruitment, governance and accountability with transparent decisions, community-driven policy, and phased reforms, holistic approach in integrating educational reform with housing, health, and safety efforts, and vision, making educational aspirational, culturally engaging, and relevant. The consortium convened 2 subcommittee retreats in March and June of 2025 for deeper planning across 3 redistricting subcommittees and to hear data updates about the landscape analysis from the American Institutes for Research, AIR. During these retreats, the consortium reviewed data and research from the social drivers of health and education landscape analysis. At the June 14th retreat, AIR provided an overview of the preliminary data modeling for 6 redistricting scenarios. During that session, AIR provided a high overview of the variables for data comparisons of these options and presented school choice data, student demographic data, and the context for reviewing and the modeling scenarios. The process at our retreats has been for the subcommittee members to review the data and information presented about each of the options and to then recommend to the consortium the options to prioritize for further consideration. Then the full body of the consortium votes to affirm narrowing these options. After reviewing the modeling data and the community feedback from the strong school town halls the consortium hosted in May, the subcommittee members of the June retreat supported recommending the following redistricting options: Northern Newcastle County Consolidated District, Metropolitan Wilmington District, Brandywine and Red Clay Consolidated School District. The consortium hosted 2 full body meetings in May and June to affirm the narrowed list of redistricting options prioritized for further consideration. The consortium voted to affirm the top 3 options to prioritize at the July full body meeting. These decisions were informed by the district modeling data of the options that are most equitable for students and families. The 3 redistricting subcommittees, fiscal impacts, operational impacts, and community engagement, will conduct further research to recommend a single recommended option. This includes gathering information and data about the 3 options at a high level and working to adjust the 13 stipulations required in a final redistricting plan. This is a map of the proposed borders for the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District. This district consolidates the districts serving Northern Newcastle County, comprising the city of Wilmington, the city of Newark, and all suburbs north and west of the city of Wilmington, not including the Appoquinimink School District unless otherwise proposed. This option consolidates all 4 districts serving Wilmington, Red Clay, Christina, Brandywine, and Colonial into 1 district. This is a map of the proposed boundaries for the Metropolitan Wilmington School District. This school district would consolidate the districts that would serve students within the geographical boundaries in the city of Wilmington and the Brandywine and Red Clay school districts. This option would consolidate Brandywine, Red Clay, and the city of Wilmington into 1 district. And the Brandywine and Red Clay school district option has 3 potential variations for the proposed boundaries: the existing boundaries, the river model, and the modified river model as shown on the screen. The existing boundaries would assign existing Christina Wilmington schools to Red Clay and the existing Colonial Wilmington schools and students to Brandywine. The river model has the current Red Clay boundaries in the city of Wilmington would expand to include students residing in the city of Wilmington south and west of the Brandywine Creek, which are currently portions of the Christina and Colonial school districts. The current Brandywine boundaries in the city would expand to include students residing north and east of the Brandywine Creek, currently portions of the Christina and Colonial school districts. And in the modified river model, Red Clay keeps Lewis Elementary School, Joseph E. Johnson Junior Elementary School, Shortlands Academy, and the Warner Elementary School. The Brandywine and Red Clay school district option consolidates, the Brandywine and Red Clay consolidated school districts would divide responsibility for the education of all students within the geographical boundaries of the city of Wilmington, i.e. the river plan. Our big ideas. The Reading Consortium voted at the July full body meeting to support the refined list of big ideas and to create a discretionary recommendations committee, a 7-member group of consortium members responsible for reviewing and narrowing the big ideas. These big ideas were outlined in the interim plan feedback approved by the consortium on May 9th of 2024, Improving student outcomes in the city of Wilmington requires more than just changing district boundary lines. Broad systemic policy reforms are critical to ensuring that all students have access to a high-quality education. These big ideas would include additional support for students and teachers in the new receiving districts. A few examples of these big ideas include enhanced wraparound services, expanded high-quality early learning opportunities, and premium pay for educators teaching in high-need schools. The Discretionary Recommendations Committee hosted its first meeting on August 19th and will continue to meet weekly until October 14th to review these big ideas and develop a proposal for the consortium to consider as part of the planning effort. The committee will review public feedback gathered by the community engagement subcommittees and get cost estimates about the narrowed big ideas list from the fiscal impact subcommittee. Over the past several months, the Reading Consortium has been working with the American Institute for Research to better understand how conditions outside of school like housing, transportation, safety, and access to healthcare affect students' health and education. As part of their qualitative data work, AIR has conducted interviews and focus groups with local communities to hear about the impact of the social drivers on students and families in the city of Wilmington and Northern Newcastle County. AIR has partnered with the Center for Structural Equity to incorporate youth-led, community-grounded research in the landscape analysis. The youth research team has engaged participants in targeted survey work. The surveys were targeted in that the youth research team prioritized a subset of social drivers such as housing, safety, health, and transportation that the team thinks are the most important based on their experience, and then crafted surveys based on those priorities. Mental health came up as the most prominent need from their first round, so they did an extra wave of surveys with high school students focused on mental health. As part of our status update about redistricting, we also wanted to share an overview of the consortium's proposed process timeline. These are some of the key dates and milestones for our work between now and June of next year. September 2025. The Reading Consortium hosted a community co-interpretation event with AIR this past Saturday to discuss these key findings from the social drivers research and hear insights and identify collective priorities for action within the community. The next several weeks will be focused on broader community engagement efforts to gather community feedback about the 3 options with our parent and family engagement series and the Educator Advisory Panel Town Halls. Excuse me. October 2025. We will host our 3rd and final retreat on October 28th, which will be a working style retreat with the full body to review the data collected by the subcommittees, to analyze the pros and cons of each model and the distinctions between them, review the community's feedback, and then the preliminary cost estimates for these models. In the meantime, AIR will send their final report for the landscape analysis. November. The consortium will then vote at the next full body meeting on November 6th to affirm one option for the development of the final plan. We will then work to develop a draft redistricting plan. In November, we plan to finalize that redistricting plan with AIR's findings. We will additionally host public hearings in each of the affected school districts and also plan to provide preliminary cost estimates to the Controller General's office. In December, on the 16th, the Reading full body will vote on the final redistricting plan. January 2026, our goal is to submit the final plan to the State Board of Education by January or February of 2026. The state board has up to 90 days to review the plan as stipulated in Delaware Code. We would also send the final plan to the Controller General's office in January to allow them to review the plan. May. If approved, we would then submit the final redistricting plan to the General Assembly in May. And the General Assembly would vote on the plan in June of 2026. Please note that the transition period and implementation process would occur following the passage of any redistricting plan where the consortium would work with the impacted districts on this process.
The next part of town hall, we would like to hear your thoughts and ideas about the redistricting process, how to best support educators and students, and to get your feedback on resolutions developed by the Discretionary Recommendations Committee. This will be a 1-hour community conversation with 20 minutes per question. We will discuss the guiding questions related to the consortium's redistricting planning effort to get input from educators and center your voices in this process. At the core of our message is supporting a strong Wilmington community and an equitable and excellent Wilmington school system for all students. So again, for tonight's town hall, we are gathering input from the community about redistricting options and collecting feedback from educators related to redistricting planning support. We want the conversation to focus on what we are trying to achieve on the ground to determine what resources can better meet the needs of students and support educators. This will not be the only time we gather feedback. There will be multiple opportunities to share your input at other Reading Consortium town hall meetings and events. Again, no decisions have been made about changing school boundary lines. We are focused on hearing from educators about how to best support their needs regarding the consortium redistricting planning effort. We will use this feedback to inform considerations about potential redistricting options. And a note, please save any questions or comments about the process for the public comment section. So we will now discuss the following guiding questions to guide our conversation tonight. The first, what is your feedback about the 3 redistricting options and how can the consortium help to best support educators' needs throughout the planning process? And as you'll see on the screen, as Stephanie mentioned, we are looking at the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District, Metropolitan Wilmington District, and Brandywine and Red Clay Consolidated School District.
Did you want folks to raise their hand?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work.
Yeah, so if you have a comment, or reply to question number 1, if you could just use the raise hand function, so we could call on you. Oh, there's one hand raised. Yeah, but I had a question. So Maddie, is Maddie a person that we call on, or she in the public, for public comment? We're just calling on
She's
everybody?
a member of the public, but if you
Perfect.
want to open it up.
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Maddie Geller?
Hi, apologies if I have to mute for a coughing fit. When I look at these three options, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the number of different programs and sort of ways that districts are run that we would need to integrate. And so I guess my gut reaction would be the Metropolitan Wilmington District or the Brandywine and Red Clay Consolidated School District, just because it would be trying to marry together a slightly smaller group of districts that all have, you know, very different ways of doing things. But I would also just like to shout out and have everyone keep in mind the special programs that we have already throughout these districts. For example, I work at Lewis, which is a dual language immersion elementary school. As of this current moment, we are a feeder school and we are a complete dual language school. It's not a dual language track where some students are dual language and some are not. Our school is entirely dual language. And I'm sure there are lots of other special programs in the city of Wilmington as well. So just trying to keep in mind there is likely special outreach that will need to be done with those stakeholders, those teachers, administrators, and community members that make up those special groups as we navigate all of the different options that are presented. And thank you for hosting this forum.
Thank you very much. Benjamin?
Hello. So looking at these options, the one thing that, you know, that I think is going to be one of the most difficult issues is, well, like one, the seniority, no matter how we switch things around, and like the pay structure, the disparity, and, you know, just the transfer of like the different transfer of the staff, because, you know, that's in Wilmington, it's been a long time. There's a lot of trust issues that we have. And I know that's outlined later, but so like, I think that that's just going to be an issue no matter what we do. And, you know, we're going to have to figure out how to make that work. I would maybe say if we're going to do it, just do everything, but that's just my opinion. Like do like the first, consolidated district, but yeah, that's just the things that stuck out to me no matter what choice we have.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel very good about the Northern Newcastle Consolidated District. I feel it was done in the past and I'm not sure it was very successful. I have mixed feelings about having Red Clay and Brandywine try and with the city form one big district that kind of takes out that whole area, basically because of the disparities we already see in incomes and what between the schools already. There's already kind of a have not fight that's already going on. And I'm not sure that that one resolves it. Although I'm not really sure that Brandywine and Red Clay, just the two would work, but I think it's probably the best choice of the three.
Sandy, may I ask, when you're talking about incomes, are you talking about educator incomes or the incomes of the folks who live in those districts?
I'm talking about people's incomes, family incomes.
Family, thank you. Casey?
So as I'm looking at these three, the one that logistically I think is easiest, but I think ultimately would be detrimental to our district is the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated. Logistically, that could be easier in the fact that you're creating a new school district. There would be a need for a new contract. You'd basically be setting all the parameters starting fresh. But my concern there is that the entire point of redistricting is for us to address the unique needs of the city. And here, I think we'd only be exacerbating the problems we're already trying to handle. In terms of the fact that Christina School District is being told that we are not addressing the needs of those in the city. And then in this situation, we would be spreading that out where we have an even wider group that are trying to all address very unique needs. So I think that one for me was the first that I thought would not be a good option. When I'm looking at the other two, the Brandywine and Red Clay School District, Consolidated School District makes the most sense to me in terms of what others have said about thinking about the logistical, like, things that they have already going on in the districts, funds that they already have going on in the district. I know personally coming from Christina and working with a lot of our city educators, all of these plans are scary to Christina educators. And I think that that's something that does need to be addressed in the process and making sure that transparency is there with them. Because like Ben said, there is a lack of trust. So regardless of which plan, I think they very much need to be included in this as we go through. But through the three, Brandywine and Red Clay makes the most sense to me, but again, I'm a little concerned about the, with the Brandywine Red Clay, a little concerned about the tax burden on Red Clay, knowing that there's not as much, funds available there as there is to Christina, so I don't know necessarily, is that all then eaten by the state at that point? So how are we making up those funds?
Thank you. Jeanette?
Okay, so how many schools are we talking about specifically in the Wilmington School District, you know, in that area that are the main concern? Because the idea that we would like take the entire Newcastle County and turn it into one big school district, because we're talking about a handful of schools in the city, you know, we're talking about now an entire county with a lot of other schools that will be impacted because of that. And I thought the idea was to eliminate busing and having the Christina School District reaching into the city of Wilmington and busing the kids around. So it makes more sense if we stay more local. But I just wanted to know, how many schools are we actually talking about that are being impacted?
As a question, yeah, there are 18 schools.
18 schools. So there's 18 schools and they are mostly elementary.
There's no high school. I don't know the exact, Elena, do you know the exact number of elementary versus middle? I can give you the breakdown, but.
But I think that that's kind of an important thing to know how that breaks down and where they are, because again, going with the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated District, now you're talking about involving a lot of schools that might not really have been impacted. The Metropolitan Wilmington District kind of seems to even make more sense, just because we're talking about that. I mean, that was the reason why all of this started, I thought. I mean, I still need to see like where the schools are and how it would be separated. I'm not even worrying about the money right now, because that would have to come later when you start saying, you know, how are we going to level up people's salaries? That's actually after figuring out how would we handle this. And so that's why I'd really like to know which schools are the ones that we're truly, you know, concerned about, that we need to figure out who's going to help change the things that are going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Jeanette, sure, absolutely, can give you the information.
Okay.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
probably right now.
All right, so Taylor's working on trying to get some of that information. Thank you, Karen. Michelle?
I was actually going to give you that information. So
Okay.
2 of the schools are 1-8. So that would be elementary. So Bayard and Pritchett are 1-8 school in Christina. PS, which is really not being affected tremendously, is Brandywine's middle school, but it also has within it, half of the building is Brandywine's middle school gifted program. As was stated, Lewis is a dual language school, K-5. The rest of them are versions of elementary schools. So in Red Clay, the configuration looks a little different. 2 of their schools are split. So Warner is a 3-4-5 and Shortledge is a K-1-2. And then Johnson is a K-5. So you're looking at essentially three middle schools. They're not middle schools only because they're a 1-8 configuration. And then 2 of the other schools, Stubbs and Pulaski, one on east and one on west side of 95, are early childhoods with pre-K, K. So one feeds the 1-8 on east side and one feeds the 1-8 on the other side of town. Just in saying that, I want to remind you, and I know we're all educators and we think in terms of school buildings, we're talking about the redistricting of the city of Wilmington. Yes, I'm sorry, Tia, yes. Warner does have an early childhood, which always thinks, so they were 3-4-5, but they also have their early childhood. Thank you, Tia, for clarifying that. That is true. So we have a lot of students in the city of Wilmington that do not attend public school, but could possibly be impacted by this if they were to go back to their feeder school if this new feeder was created. And with saying that, for example, next down the street from Pritchett, there are 5 charter schools literally within 2 blocks of Pritchett. So keep in mind that we're not talking about the buildings themselves. Those buildings could be reconfigured to be high schools or middle schools or 1-8s, or we're talking about the redistricting of the city of Wilmington, is what Reading was posed with. With that said, I just want to go back to that question and my 2 thoughts. The whole point of the Reading Consortium was to support the students in the city of Wilmington. I was there when we went from 9 down to 3. I still call that metropolitan district the red wine district, just in my brain. But having all the districts together does mean that you could divide the whole thing out, city and suburbs. But yes, once again, you would be looking at a bigger piece. My personal opinion is in Delaware, we have lots of small districts that are tiny. Like we could combine some of our lower state districts, all, 8 or 9 of them would equal 1 northern. So size wise, I don't necessarily know that's positive or negative. But combining all of them, I always think about it as the resources in all of those districts would then become the resources of the city of Wilmington. On the flip side of that, the same reason why a lot of people are opposed to the whole idea is the metropolitan and the Brandywine would mean that 2 of the districts would be taking on something of more need with less, in some cases, tax base. And they're working those financials out. But I always think that we need to look at this in what's in the best interest of children, not necessarily the adults. And I sit on both sides of the city. So in all the districting, I could end up in Red Clay or in Christina, or I work for Christina Red Clay or in Brandywine because I work with schools that are in 2 different sides of the city. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking in terms of what's going to be in the best interest of all the children in the city of Wilmington, and the possibility that 11,000 could become a lot bigger if some of those families decide to rechoice back to their feeder school if their feeder school in fact had other opportunities or other programs or other schools within schools. One of the screens before talks about magnet schools and other options that could possibly come to the city schools. Think in terms of, and I'm just throwing this out there to you, these are middle schools and high schools, but think in terms of Cab Calloway for the performing arts is a middle school and high school. What if we had that at the elementary level all the way through to high school in the city of Wilmington? What if we had a school of sciences, a school of the performing arts at the elementary level all the way through to high school in the city of Wilmington? So think about what that looks like and which one of these three options would allow us to get to that point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of, because when I said which schools, it was more about the kids, because that's really what we're doing. And that's why I said not to worry about the money right now, because the money, and leveling up salaries, that's almost ancillary to the idea of the purpose of all of this, which was to improve education for all the students that are in all the districts. So yeah, thank you for that.
See Crystal stand up.
Hi, I'm sorry. I joined a little late, so I don't know if prior to this part of the session starting, if this was addressed. But looking at the three options, I'm wondering if there's been thought, or if there should be thought, of the impact it would have on middle schools and high schools, because a lot of the schools that were just given in that list have children that will be going to the next. And what does that look like? Now, do they have the option? Does the choice process have to look different? Is there even a choice process? Can I, if I reside, depending on which one of these, if I live on A street, can I just go where how does that look? And I don't know if that's even been talked about or considered.
I was gonna mention one thing. So for, and we covered this, a little bit earlier, but for the community engagement subcommittee, they're tasked with looking at, one of the assigned stipulations is looking at, a city, like a high school option in the city of Wilmington and secondary options for students. So, to your point, that's something that we would be considering in terms of planning around, each of these options, thinking through, once the final option is chosen, kind of figuring out what that would look like with like school feeder patterns and things like that. But yeah, I think that's a good point as well. I also see, Michelle, your hand is raised again.
Chris, just in response to Crystal, that was exactly why I was saying about the city of Wilmington, not the schools, because we have high schoolers and middle schoolers that would be affected by this that live within the city of limits, but they are currently bused out of the city for middle school, out of the city for high school, and they are within those numbers. A lot of times people think in terms of just the buildings. We just need to remember that we have a whole lot of students within the city limits that would be affected by this, that are in schools outside of the city limits. And traditionally there are middle schoolers and our high schoolers. So definitely keep that in mind.
We're just about 20 minutes for this
Yeah,
first
that's it.
question,
Okay.
so I'm going to move to the second question. Again, this is not the only opportunity to provide input. We do want to move to the second question. So understanding the current framework and the approved interim plan of removing the Christina School District from serving the city of Wilmington and only to 2 or fewer districts serving the city. What supports do you think our students need to be more successful? And some examples: academic supports and services, transportation needs, school climate supports and resources. And what supports will educators need to be successful during this process? I heard, I think, some hints of both of these categories in previous comments, but looking at educator needs, contract adjustments, compensation, seniority, salary, governance. Finally, what do you think the community needs? So we're going to spend 20-ish minutes on this question.
Casey?
So a couple of things, I'll start with what the students need. I think that a lot of what the students need and what the community needs, mirror each other. There's a reason the students have certain needs because those are similar needs in the community. Some of this is already addressed in previous work done by the consortium, but thinking about supports for our homeless students, the housing instability, food instability, healthcare access, addressing community violence, transportation. These pieces are, the students really need those additional supports, and so does the community. In terms of the educators, I'll give just a little context before I share the responses here. About a year and a half ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, I conducted about 70 one-on-one conversations with educators across the WLC, in order to see what needs they had. So that's where these responses are coming from. Myself not being a city educator, I want to be clear, this is from their perspective. One of the number one things that came up across those conversations was recruitment and retention. A lot of these recommendations here are also asking for additional staff on top of the staffing that's there. And the staffing that is there is not enough to even address current needs. So when we think about recruitment and retention, we need to be thinking about not just the monetary pieces, which does have to be there. There has to be an immediate cost benefit for someone working in the city. Something that gives them above stipends that have been there in the past, because they truly aren't enough. But it needs to help address turnover. City teachers commented that they're always starting over. Every year it feels like they're starting over, and over the years, there's always been new initiatives coming in. So I think that recruitment retention piece is essential. Others hinted at the trust concern. And the system of shared decision-making, I think, is one that has to be maintained regardless of what redistricting looks like. The educators need to be at the table, and they need to have that shared decision-making process, or that trust will not be there because things will be happening to them. So regardless of what happens, that needs to be embedded in contracts. The other piece that came up a lot was related to trauma and secondary trauma and the resulting behaviors, the physical impact on staff. So when we're talking about what will actually retain people in the city, money is a part of it because you need to have some sort of financial gain to stay. But at the same time, we also need to address the other issues like the fact there are not physically enough people. The unit system does not work well in the city in terms of the needs that are there. The lack of decision-making control. Some feel that there are predatory systems coming into play in terms of all of these outside agencies essentially in and out of classrooms constantly. We need to think about the impact that's having on our students and our educators. We also need to think about curricular needs. There's been a lot of pushback about getting specific curriculums, for example, that can help bridge the gaps for some of our students, because there's a want to make things consistent across districts, when if our goal is to address individual student needs, then we need to be able to do that. And ultimately, it comes down to addressing for students, Maslow's before Bloom's, but for the educators, they also need that support because of that secondary trauma that comes into play. And finally, just so I don't forget to say it, the longevity of any of these systems that we put into place, because part of the problem is the constant changes, and then nothing can really be done about it for the long term.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Hello. So I'd like to start by saying I agree with everything Casey said. But also, so the students, I think one of the biggest issues is going to be, no matter what we do, the unification of the different systems or different methods that they've had. So like in the Christina city, we've had our MOU for 6 years now, you know, with the city schools, and they've been trying to build that system, but it's had to be redone several times, and there's the WLC, doing what they're doing, and then there's all the different schools, and if we change that, that's going to be an issue for the students if they're going to be forced to be moved around or just trying to change up like the systems that have been trying to been implemented. And as Casey said, it's been restarting almost over and over. That's going to be really difficult for the kids. And also for the educators, I think that the biggest issue with that is, you know, I see on there their seniority, salary. That is also very important. It's also forcing to move and unifying the different contracts around what's, you know, around all the districts or around whatever plan is going to be put forward. And also the lack of trust, because with all these different things that have been done before, that they said it's been to help everybody, but then it's still getting like targeted in the city. And a lot of times there is a lack of trust because it's usually always blamed on the educators, and it's not been very helpful. And I think that also the community needs, basically they need to understand like why, like they they need to see like what would actually get better, because the community has also seen all of these different initiatives, and now they're just trying to do another one. And basically, you know, and a lot of the families that would be a question they would have, like, if we're going to do all of this, we move this Christina school district out, then what would that, you know, what, like, how would that fix it? Again, that's just questions that they're going to have. So thank you.
Thank you. Daddy?
Hi, echoing what was just put in the chat, I know that there have been several community events. I also know that a lot of community members really have still very little information about this whole process, which is nobody's fault. It's just how the cookie crumbles. And I would hope that before that, you know, the end of this school year, that there could be meetings at all of the physical WLC schools. Oftentimes, events that are hosted by the school itself are better attended by families than outside events. One thing that stuck out to me for student supports was transportation needs. I know in the past, the 1 mile rule for transportation has been tricky in a place like downtown Wilmington, where that 1 mile might involve crossing several busy streets that don't have crossing guards. They have crosswalks, but many don't have crossing guards. So I'm hopeful that that's something that could be addressed with more flexibility with whichever plan goes forward. Because I know that improving student attendance and improving student academic outcomes are two very large, important points of this entire process. And I think educators, we want as much transparency as possible. I think that meetings like this are a great start. There's going to be a lot, no matter which way it works out, regarding union membership, salary negotiations, compensation, because every district does it so differently right now. So I think, you know, just hosting as many events like this as possible and connecting with local leaders that will be impacted, so we can mobilize our folks to get as many people aware of what's going to happen as possible, so people don't feel taken by surprise in the end. And yes, echoing in the chat, bilingual access, not as an afterthought, but as a key component, and translating from educational jargon to what families can easily understand, and students.
Thank you. Thank you for referencing what's in the chat.
Anybody else? Please, this is a big one, so it is definitely worth spending the 20 minutes on this question. Ben's hands up again.
Sorry. Yes. So I think I would also like to add, also from the union perspectives, like if they move, you'd be forcing like this could be forcing the different teachers, different members of everybody to then forcibly switch to another district. And, that would just impact the whatever, the other districts. And it would also impact them as well. And I know that is, so they put down like the contracts, the seniority. I know those are big issues. But it's also it's also because of the lack of trust. A lot of teachers in the city, if this happens, they'll just go. Like, because we've been through a lot. And it always, and at least in a Christina, and it always seems that, that it's always just blamed on us. And, and the solution is just and the solution would just be to get rid of us. That's kind of what it seems. That's what it seems to all the teachers, and it would be forcing everybody to move, and it'd be very difficult. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Crystal?
I wanted to underscore, I think, what Maddie said, and I maybe wanted to encourage that those meetings that might be held in strategic places like the schools happen sooner than later. Because right now, when it's mentioned to the general population, at least in my school, which is in Red Clay, most folks are like, well, why? Like, how will this bring about a different change than what's been done to us before? I'm relatively new to Red Clay, so I wasn't there when all of the other changes occurred. But I think that most parents and most teachers just don't understand why they would say perhaps that why these three options are the options, and what is the end goal, and how will that happen if and when one is chosen. And so I think that those kinds of conversations would need to happen, because I do think you'll have what the gentleman just said. You'll have people then like never before, like running.
Thank you. Sandy?
I agree with a lot of what's been said here. I think the communication, not just community partners, but with the actual parents is extremely important, because being a school, I'm from Stubbs, and being at a school that's, stops at kindergarten and then they go off to another school, a lot of parents get very upset when they find out, oh, you don't go to 3rd or 5th grade. Like they were very upset with the reconfiguration when Christina did the different grade bands. And I know a lot, so I felt like a lot of people, they didn't follow it, they didn't listen to it ahead of time, and then when it was affecting them, then they were worried about it, and it was too late. So I agree with the other people have stated, we need a lot of in the actual schools meetings where you get the more local set of people, and hopefully they'll be more involved in this process. That kind of goes along with, I think the community needs are just as important as the teachers and educators needs, is until we resolve the poverty situation in some of these areas, and it's not just the city of Wilmington, that we're struggling to get the parents involved, get that one caring person that has the time to pay attention, sit with the student, make sure homework's done, empty the folder and say, how was your day? And so some of it's a little bit of parenting classes, but they have to want to do those, because if they don't want to, do it, then we're just kind of spinning our wheels. And like the other gentleman said, the teachers just get blamed.
I was gonna say, can I just make one point? And I know that, I believe Jim Simmons also put this in the chat too, in terms of looking at the framework of trying to unify the city of Wilmington and the kind of the impetus of looking at the removal of the Christina School District from serving the city of Wilmington is kind of like due to the disconnected nature of having looking with the map that was shown with geography, that there being that small footprint in the city of Wilmington footprint, and then there was like the larger New York area. So trying to focus on having like stronger unified public schools in that way, and that's why we're focusing on 2 or fewer districts serving the city, understanding that there's different access to different resources, and then different curriculums, and so things could be very different depending on students and where they go and attend school. And to the point about in terms of having more strategic events and community engagement efforts, I know we have parent engagement co-leads for the Reading Consortium that's led by Helen Anderson at the WLC, Kendra Brown, who's also the leader of the parent advocacy group of PACE with the Christina Cultural Arts Center, and then also with Dr. O, who leads the Office of Educational Advocacies for Wilmington City Council. And they've been focused and partnering with the consortium on trying to bring more information to the community about a lot of these, hearing their voices and concerns and ideas regarding this process. And so we're in the process of developing a parent engagement one-pager so that this shares this information in a way that's accessible to families and folks who are just coming into this process or just learning about it. So we just wanted to share that as well. And we're also going to have more parent engagement focused events where we'll be going and attending school events, sharing that one-pager, presenting about the consortium's efforts as well. So just wanted to give that background and context around some of our efforts on that too. But I see some more folks have raised their hand as well.
Thanks. Yeah. Crystal, was your hand raised again, or is that from last time?
I'm sorry, I didn't lower it.
No worries. Thanks. Janine?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Still haven't mastered the mute. Thank you for that, Alina. That was what was my concern too, is because yes, I do think that we should be involving the parents very much so. And I know that it's been mentioned to bring it up to have the meetings at schools and things like that. But I'm also thinking that to broaden that space and make it out to the community. So other events, churches, wherever you can go to the parents, I think that would be a great idea, because I think, to Sandy's point, a lot of parents don't know what's going on. And if they hear one more thing, they may just not be accepting to it, whether it's done or not. So broadening the communication aspect of it and including the parents should be the main priority.
Thank you. Casey?
I just wanted to add a couple things as I was hearing people talk. One is the fact that we do need, Janine just started talking about this, but the communication piece, I know that the way that this is working, the redistricting will ultimately be that first step before some of these other pieces can happen. But I think we also need to be really aware of how we are communicating this to people. Because for example, with the Christina educators, when we were saying, well, there's not as much of an impact here, or well, this is separate from the city a bit, that's why Christina is the one who's going to be moving. Regardless of the size of who it's impacting, we're talking about people. So we need to be really aware when we're talking about Christina and some of our educators who have devoted their entire careers to the city and how this is impacting them, as well as their students. So I know that there's been a lot of data thrown around, and just wanted to throw in the room, like, we do need to be aware of the people who this is impacting. The other thing to keep in mind is, as we're talking about this, right now, none of our districts are currently successfully addressing the needs in the city. So when we are talking about taking things away from Christina, which that is ultimately the plan here at this point in time, we also need to take a hard look at what is happening in the other districts. And according to data, no one is successfully doing this yet. So we really need to look at that. Just a few comments, looking back at some of my notes from conversations with people. There were a number of comments about there being a lot of uplifting pieces to the WLC, things that are happening, something like a great back to school night, a great event, but then the next day everyone is back in survival mode. So when we're talking about supports in the schools, we need to not just be thinking about those large scale events that are going to inspire people and get them to want to do this work. And we really need to make sure the money and the funding is going to those resources, so people are not in survival mode every day. A lot of conversations about people being hyper-focused on curriculum scores, when we see kids who are starving. There's a lot of medical problems, a lot of issues in the buildings, in terms of mice, leaks, mold, etc. So when we're thinking about this, again, we need to think about the survival mode that is happening. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the recruitment, retention, all of that, but we need to, as much as we can, focus on the people here, which is why I appreciate this set of questions more than many of the others. And I think this needs to be at the forefront of anything that we present, including the redistricting plan. What is the impact it's going to have on people, not just here's where these lines are.
Thank you. Nora?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Yeah, survival mode really strikes a chord with me. I know that one thing I'm hoping, one opportunity that I hope this change brings is to look at ways we can build in time for teachers. There's so much time that we need to devote to scaffolding and supporting our students, and it's just not available to us during our workday. And I know this is Captain Obvious speaking here, but I'm hoping that that kind of support will be considered for educators during this process and beyond, so that we can address teacher retention. I think that's a huge part of it. And then I don't know where to put this, but I know Maddie mentioned our special program at Lewis, which is a school-wide dual language immersion program, which I've been working at for 10 years. I love it. My kids have gone to Lewis, but it's still, we need to take a close look at how well it's serving students who are attending because it's their feeder school, whose families, even if they've gone there since kindergarten, may not even understand the program, don't fully understand what immersion is. So I don't know where to put that, but hopefully this would be an opportunity to look at how we're delivering programming like that at schools in Wilmington.
Thank you.
This one? Okay, great. Thank you all very much. This is our final set of questions for tonight. We're going to take again 20 minutes on this. So please provide feedback on the 3 resolutions for review from the Discretionary Recommendations Committee. And thank you, Elena, for linking them in the presentation. Resolution on salary premiums for teachers in high-need schools, resolutions for enhanced wraparound service programs, and a resolution on support for 9th to 12th grade students residing in the city of Wilmington.
I'm going to pull those up.
Oh, thank you very much. Try to get a thumbs up if you can see. All right, thank you, Casey.
Oh, great.
Oh, you can see it.
No,
you're in the room. Oh, you can see it on the computer. Okay.
I like to follow along the
I also want to mention, I know we mentioned that Matt Den, Reading Consortium co-chair, is on as well. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to provide any, context about these resolutions with the Discretionary Recommendations Committee.
Thanks, Lynn. No, I know time's running out for this meeting. I guess the main context, 2 points. One, as you can see from reading them, these are requests for 2 of our other committees to develop cost estimates for the various iterations in them, and also for our Community Engagement Committee to actually put them out for the broader public to comment on. And then they would all come back to the Reading Consortium with cost estimates and community feedback. So this is a fairly early stage with all of these. That's number one. And number two, this isn't a complete set of the requests that we're going to be making on this front. I think Stephanie mentioned at the beginning that this Discretionary Recommendations Committee, which Stephanie's a member of, has been meeting weekly and is scheduled to continue meeting into late October. and is going to be considering and sending along other resolutions like this. So this is a partial list, and the list, as you can see, is to try to get some initial feedback about them. And this is just me speaking personally. I think that these additional programming items are as important, if not more important, than the district lines. I think that what's actually happening in the schools at the school level is critical, and that we should be talking about it alongside and simultaneously with the discussion of the district lines.
Any initial reactions?
Are we gonna talk about them one by one? Just-
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, otherwise I won't be able to take
Okay,
notes.
just making sure.
Yes.
Michelle?
Matt, I don't know that you could answer this, but do we have any idea what the statistics are currently in those schools? Like what, I'm looking at numbers 1 through 4, do we know currently what they are?
You mean how many teachers would meet each of these definitions?
Right, that would currently meet these, yes.
I believe that number 1 is a relatively small number of teachers with national board certification, and that's not just schools in the city. That's
It's schools across, yeah, because they're not. Right.
I do not know the numbers for the other 3.
Is it possible before the next, I think there's another one in October, that we possibly get an idea of what exists currently?
Yeah, the finance subcommittee will have to do that in order to come up with cost estimates for these. They will have to know. So the answer is yes, and that'll, that's a necessary part of coming up with cost estimates.
Just to put them next to. Thanks.
Thank you. Janine?
Yes, hi. I have a question. Where exactly will this additional funding come from?
I'm not sure if I should be answering these questions or not. I don't want to intrude.
No, no, Matt, unmute and answer the question. Yes.
Yeah, when the Reading Consortium submits its larger proposal to the state, it's required to have estimates of cost associated with it. So the presumption would be that the state would provide the additional funding that was involved. That's at least my intention, and I think that's been the assumption of the other consortium members, that whatever price tag is associated with the different parts of the proposal, that would be state funding and not local funding.
Okay, so then thank you for that. My follow-up question is, so therefore then the state will have funding to successfully do what they need to do in these proposals or these resolutions, and then is it sustainable?
And again, I'm hesitating about answering because this isn't my meeting.
Feel free.
So yeah, I mean, that the cost for all these things is, that's something that the consortium is going to have to look at when it decides what to recommend. It's asked for cost estimates for a lot of things, and also the different redistricting proposals likely have different costs associated. So that's going to be part of what the consortium looks at when it decides on what it recommends, and the school board and ultimately the General Assembly. I'm sure that they will want to look at, and I'm sure that we all as taxpayers would want them to look at what the costs are and how sustainable things are. And I know that you as teachers have probably all experienced the state starting programs and then stopping them, and that's not helpful. So I think, yes, it certainly we would want these things to be sustainable and long term.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Janine, is that okay for you?
Yes, until I think of another question, but thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate your answers.
Thanks. Casey?
So one question I had about this, because I see that there is, like cost estimates near the bottom of what would be considered potentially designated schools. But my question is more about the qualified teacher piece. When you're saying qualified teachers, are you talking about licensed and certified teachers, or is there another definition there?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we laid out 4 different options. That's what this 1, 2, 3, 4 is at the top. 4 different options for what the, what the state might want to consider to be qualified teachers for the purpose of this program. So it, the board certification, masters, there's the whole list there.
Okay, because as I'm building on that, I think that there also needs to be a consideration first of those licensed and certified educators in the city, just flat out if they choose to teach in the city, what kind of stipend could be available to them if they're licensed and certified. I know that we have shortages there and we have others filling in, but those who are there, especially if this redistricting happens, there are certain districts who do provide stipends for teachers to teach in the city already. And I don't see that as an option here. I see if those people are going above and beyond in addition to that, that's where there could be additional pay, and that's concerning to me, considering that retention piece. The other thing here is looking at, I am curious about some of the numbers of these, like knowing there's only 200 total national board certified educators in the state of Delaware. That's not going to account for many educators in the city. That's spread throughout the entire state. And when I'm looking at some of these other options, it really seems like, I mean, there's additional schooling. Oh, you're getting additional pay for 5 or more years of experience. What if we have a brand new person coming in who's already making a really low salary, but they're willing to be there and put in the time and the work and they're a licensed certified educator? So I think we need to consider as a baseline what our licensed and certified educators could get. And then on top of that, could there be additional stipends for some of these other pieces for those who are doing more, in order to recruit some of those extra qualified teachers?
Thank you. Jeanette?
Yeah, and in addition to what Casey just said about that, looking at those top 4 things, 3 of them are actually in the teacher's control, but the being rated highly effective is not in your control as much. And now that we're actually moving towards, like Brandywine is piloting this new student improvement component, and looking at it and how absolutely complicated it is to write a goal that's going to meet the criteria, because I'm currently trying to come up with my goals for my, and I can imagine how challenging it's going to be. Now, granted, this year's Hold Harmless, that's wonderful. I'm supposed to be stretching. I really wonder how, if we're already struggling with students in the city and struggling to get educators to come into the city, to tie their salaries to only if you're highly effective, then you'll get that extra bonus. We've gone on that road before, and it never really goes well. And again, like Casey said, if you're trying to draw teachers in, oftentimes, I mean, granted, you want them to be experienced. You don't want somebody, just starry-eyed saying, I'm going to solve all the world's problems. I'm going to come, and teach in the city. We've seen that too with different programs, but you definitely want something that's going to attract people to come into the city, knowing that not just the salary though, but also the supports. Like I really enjoyed when somebody said, giving teachers extra time, having that time to plan together, and really not just a PLC where you're sitting in a room with other people and it kind of doesn't really get to the heart of the matter of what the students need, but something to that effect where you can really plan and then go over how things are going. That would be definitely more beneficial than just saying, oh, you've a national board certification, here's some extra money.
Janine, did your hand up for previously or just?
No, it's back up. Thank you. And I wanted to thank you, Casey, for putting what you said into the conversation, and to echo Jeanette. I do have some concerns with the highly qualified, or excuse me, highly effective. To Jeanette's point, yeah, I don't think that should be a parameter that we're looking at, because we don't have a say-so, as, and by we, I mean educators don't have a say-so on how that is laid out for us, and to bump that to 10% as compared to your 5 years experience and etc. I think that's really a good way to shoot yourself in the foot with that component.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Hello. So I would like to add on, to what was already said. And if we had to pick for the salary option, for the options, I would say either it would be the master's degree or the 5 years of experience. Because because if you have the master's, or if you've been working in the city for that long, that means you're really there to support them, and that you've been trying to increase your practices and always trying to improve. So I think that would probably like the extra degree would, it's already beneficial with the state salary scale, and if you want to recruit teachers, the extra pay is something that'll be really important, because in Christina we've had like a city a city teacher stipend, and we've been trying to bring different teachers in, and basically and so I think that would probably hit the most people if you had the masters in your field. If we had to pick one, I'd probably say the masters. That would probably be the best case.
Thank you.
I know we have 2 minutes left.
Yeah,
And
let's move on to the
two
next
more
one.
to come through. So how do you wanna, do you want us to keep going, keep running through?
Yeah,
Okay.
if we can, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So next we have the enhanced wraparound services. And take some time to familiarize yourself with our resolution as it's being displayed.
And I also wanted to mention that all of these resolutions are posted on the solutionsfordelawareschools.com page. It's under the discretionary recommendations subcommittee. And if you click on that link, they have all of the resolutions that are listed out that have been updated as of like the recent meeting. So just wanted to note that as well.
Can we add to that if folks who are on the call have comments around these last 2 resolutions, they can certainly send them to you.
Yeah,
because I know that Taylor said we are running out of time, and I want to be respectful of folks' time. So that if we don't get to hear your ideas, please make sure that you send them to Elena so we can make sure that we're capturing them. Casey?
I'll be quick because I know I can talk a lot. The big things that stood out to me on this one, the first was seeing some split resources. I was concerned about there being one administrator for every 4 schools, like in addition with certain programs. And being in a school myself that is part in person, part a virtual academy, splitting resources never works well. So if there are schools who are running these kinds of programs, they're going to need someone designated to do that in every building who's doing it, not just someone who's overseeing in a number of buildings. And the other piece is I don't know that there's enough thought here about how to retain the expertise we have. This is adding a lot of additional people to staff. So thinking about how could we retain the people that we already have before we find all these extra people who would need to do these service programs.
Thank you, Casey. Janine?
So I have a question. I know I see that the K through 3rd students will have 1 certified teacher and 1 aide for every 25 students. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that if classes were over that anywhere, or at least up to 25, that they would have to get a waiver and supposedly have an aide already. Is that the current state?
There is a state law related to class sizes, so I'd be curious.
I do not remember the conversation we had about why we chose that number. We did talk about state code, and trying to adhere to state code, but thinking about the idea that these services are outside of the school day, but,
Okay.
yeah. Let us get back to you on that.
So
Do you believe
I
number of
wonder, I'm just gonna,
students should be lower?
Personally, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the old MOU for Christina for the city schools, that was K-3 has 18 as the cap. Just, I think that that's where they started to think about it from.
Thank you.
Any other hands for this question before we move to the final?
Michelle, did you want to say something else about
Yeah,
wraparounds?
just the part that you're bringing down about, and we're talking about summer. The first year of the merge, Christina tried, we started school on August the 4th, and we went until June, I want to say 28th that year. Our problem is our parents wouldn't buy into it. So we literally had 2 starts to the school year. We had one on August 28th, and then we had another one in September when all the other schools, the charter schools and everything opened up, because parents, we just couldn't get the buy-in from parents. It wasn't that the staff or the parents just weren't willing to send them to school, and we had the same problem on the back end. And a lot of it was because siblings were at VOTEX or Charters and Choice, and they used that time in August to go see family and whatever. So I'm not trying to say this hasn't been done before. I just want to make sure that things, like, we're not rehashing something that has been tried in the city. And that's why we went to a longer school day instead of an extended school year. Just putting that out there. And Christy.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to the final resolution. And again, this is on support for 9th to 12th grade students residing in the city of Wilmington. Michelle, was your hand up for this one?
Oh, you're muted. Oh, she said no. And I also wanted to mention, I believe this is also related to the Boost 26 initiative too, that supports City of Wilmington students. And a cross coordinated effort across the district serving Newcastle County. So just wanted to provide the context to it. But I see Casey, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just had more of a clarifying question. So the one thing that I'm noticing in here is it says providing graduation coaches for every 500 students. How many coaches for 500 students? Because when I first read it, I'm thinking like one coach for 500 kids, that's not gonna work. So I think really clarifying what that looks like. I don't know if that's just you're only gonna start with 500 kids and then expand, but thinking through some of the logistics there. For the number of people that be needed to support that many students.
I was gonna ask Matt, do you have any additional context for that too? Sorry, keep asking for your input, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the finance subcommittee was going to use whatever ratio the Boost program has been using. And I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head what that number is, but they were going to use the same ratio that's been used the last few years.
Then I guess I'll just add one more thing to that. I think we also need to think prior to 9th to 12th grade, because when we think about where we start losing students, it's at the middle school level. So if we're thinking about boosting graduation rates, we need to look at middle school. So that may be a place for us to expand those services.
Not seeing any other hands, I know we're also about 10 minutes over time already, so. We have public comment next.
Yes. All right, so if there's any member of the public that would like to offer public comment, can you please raise your hand and write your name in the chat? And you'll have 2 minutes per individual and 3 minutes if you're representing an organization. So. Well, I don't see any raised
I don't
hands.
see any raised hands either, or anyone adding anything in the chat. So as you can see on the screen, in terms of next steps for the consortium, we're gonna have another educator advisory panel, town hall. October the 15th, virtual, just like this. We have our Reading full body retreat meeting on October the 28th. From 5 p.m. to 8:30, we're gonna be providing more information about that. And then the Reading Consortium has its next full body meeting, November the 6th from 5:30 to 7:30. And there'll be more information coming out about that as well. We want to thank you very much for your time tonight, for being here, for giving your comments and being willing to share your thoughts. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
All right, thank you, everyone.